Hey guys, I'm back to do another one of my character reviews. Like I said in my last video, this time my friend and I are reviewing the characters of Launchpad McQuack from DuckTales and Darkwing Duck, and Madellaine from The Hunchback of Notre Dame 2. My friend did his Launchpad video yesterday, I did mine the day before that, and he did his Madellaine review the day before that. And I'm here today to do my Madellaine review. One thing that I probably should mention before I get started on this, I do love the character of Madellaine, but I haven't followed her nearly as much as my friend has. And I was aware of some of the complaints that she got, but some of these did surprise me. Although I guess they shouldn't surprise me too much, since she is an infamous sequel character, as they all are. Anyway, I've got a really long list of complaints about her, so let's get started. Her movie is inferior to the original. She's a flat character with no personality. She's bland and boring. She's a Mary Sue. She's a damsel in distress. She was only created to give Quasimodo a love interest. She's ugly. She went behind Quasimodo's back and was working for the villain. She's stupid. She ruined the concept of the gargoyles being imaginary and in Quasimodo's head by being able to talk to them. Her development was poorly done. She should have left the circus a long time ago and quit working for Sarouche. I think that's how his name's pronounced. She's passive. She should have been ugly to match Quasimodo. And she's a sequel character. Starting with the whole, her movie is inferior to the original one. Yeah, it definitely is, but what in the frick does that have to do with Madellaine's character? Huh? I will admit that even though the movie of Hunchback of Notre Dame 2 is definitely a bad movie, it's a guilty pleasure of mine, and I do enjoy watching it, but yeah, it definitely sucks as a movie. But yeah, it's definitely inferior to the original. I mean, the animation is, substandard, and that's putting it nicely. Most of the songs aren't that great. The villain's really weak. But, just because a movie or a TV show is bad, that's no reason to hate all of the characters in it. I mean, Madellaine in and of herself is a really good character, and just because she comes from a bad movie, that's no reason to hate her. So pick a better reason than she's from a bad movie. I mean, there are plenty of there are plenty of movies and TV shows that I dislike, but have a few characters in them that I like the movie Frozen. To me, it's a very weak movie with a weak storyline and a lot of plot holes in them, but I personally love the character Elsa. She's my third favorite Disney princess. And I think that Olaf is a really funny, entertaining character. So, pick a better reason than her movie's bad. She's a flat character with no personality. A character having no personality is something that gets thrown around way too much. I mean, I've heard characters, all kinds of characters called that, like, Lola Bunny from Space Jam, Elsa from Frozen, Odette from The Swan Princess, ever since the Nostalgia Critic did his review of it. Shanti from, both of the Jungle Book movies, and, of course, Aurora, Prince Philip, Snow White's prince, Prince Charming from Cinderella. I've heard all of them. I've heard people say that all of them have no personality, but unless you're talking about a very, very, very minor character that only has maybe 1 or 2 lines, a character's got a personality. So that complaint is way overused. The personality may be boring, it may be poorly developed, it may be a one-dimensional personality, but they've got a personality. And I don't really see how Madellaine has no personality, since she's, since she's in the movie quite a bit and we learn a lot about her. So, nice try. But pick a better one than she has no personality. She's bland and boring. Like annoying, boring is very much in the eye of the beholder. I mean, I can get this complaint with her more than I do with, like people calling Scrooge boring. But I still wouldn't call her a boring character. I mean, she definitely has some depth and layers to her. Obviously not the most complex character in the universe, but she's still got some depth and layers to her. But like I said, boring is very much in the eye of the beholder. I mean, like I just said, people have called Scrooge boring, and I think that he's my favorite fictional character, and I think that he's about as interesting as they come. And, there are characters, I can't really think of any off the top of my head, but there are characters that I find boring that other people find really interesting. So I'm not going to spend too long on this, since it's very subjective and very much in the eye of the beholder. But But to me, she definitely has some depth and layers to her, and does have not an uber complex personality, but definitely a three-dimensional personality, and I don't really see how that translates into boring. Not to mention the adventures that she goes on with Quasimodo and that sort of thing. I mean, I know that she doesn't have a lot of action scenes and that sort of stuff, so I suppose people might find that boring. But not every character has to be kicking butt in order to be interesting. Moving on. She's a Mary Sue. How? I mean, no, she's not as flawed characters like Candace from Phineas and Ferb, or a character like that, or or probably a lot of the modern Disney heroes and heroines like Merida, Jasmine. She's not as flawed as they are, but she's pretty far from a Mary Sue. I mean, she's uncomfortable in her own skin, awkward, clumsy, embarrassed, nervous. So she's pretty far from a Mary Sue. But like a character who has no personality, Mary Sue is something that gets thrown around a great deal. I've heard all kinds of characters that obviously aren't Mary Sue's be called them, like Rapunzel from Tangled, Anna from Frozen. But what a Mary Sue actually means is a, if not flawless character, close to flawless character, or possibly a character that has things come too easy to them. And she's definitely neither of those. Things don't come easily to her, and she's definitely not flawless. When I think of the closest thing to a Disney Mary Sue that I can think of is possibly Belle. But even she's not completely flawless. So, that term is way overused, and I don't think a lot of the people who use it know exactly what it means. So, before you go throwing terms around like a character having no personality, or a character being a Mary Sue, figure out what the frick they mean. She's a damsel in distress. How? How is she a damsel in distress? I mean, she's the one who saves the day at the end. I can't really think of any time that she needed saving herself. I mean, heck, Esmeralda in the original Hunchback needed more saving than she did. Which I don't consider Esmeralda to be a useless damsel in distress, but if we're going to point fingers at Hunchback of Notre Dame heroines for being a damsel in distress, then that means Esmeralda is one too, because she needed a lot more saving than Madeline did. What do you have to say to that? And I mean, so So did a lot of other Disney heroines, like, Merida from Brave, who is actually advertised as being a tough action girl who can take care of herself. So, to me, this is a very illegitimate complaint about Madellaine. 'Cause I can't really think of any times that she needed saving, and she saves the day herself. And I don't really see how a character, I mean, even if she does need to be saved occasionally, even if I've forgotten one time or something, because it's been a while since I've seen the movie. Sorry about that. But even if she did need to be saved herself, I don't really see how that makes her a bad character. To me, the only bad damsels in distress are the ones that are completely worthless and, don't really pull their own weight around and contribute nothing. I mean, my favorite fictional female character, Webby Vanderquack, tied with Minnie Mouse, plays the damsel in distress in her show DuckTales, quite a few times, but she also pulls her weight around and saves the day. So, but I don't really see her playing the damsel in distress in the show as making her a bad character, because it doesn't somehow turn her into a worthless character that so that she doesn't pull her own weight around in the team. So, unless you're talking about a character like Irene from Princess and the Goblin, or something like that, where all they do is play the damsel in distress, I don't really see that as being a legitimate reason to hate a character. Or, yeah, I know he's a male character, but, the Gus from the Cinderella franchise, where all he does is play the damsel and the dude in distress and slow the other mice down. I don't really see a character occasionally needing to be saved and playing the damsel in distress as being a legitimate reason to hate a character. I mean, everybody needs to be saved occasionally, and everybody saves their friend occasionally, is my feeling. She was only created to be Quasimodo's love interest. Yeah, her main reason for being created was to be Quasi's love interest, but, I don't really see that as a bad thing, as long as they give her some depth and a three-dimensional personality, and don't just have, one-dimensional person that serves no other purpose than being the love interest. I mean, there are a lot of characters that I like that were pretty much only created to be a love interest. Like I mentioned just a few minutes ago, Minnie Mouse ties with Webby Vanderquack for my favorite female fictional character. And she was pretty much only created to be Mickey's arm candy, but she's evolved into a very good three-dimensional character, and it doesn't bother me that she was only created to be Mickey's arm candy. There are also characters that I like Roxanne from a Goofy movie that was only created to be Max's love interest, Lola Bunny from Space Jam that was created to be Bugs Bunny's love interest. And, Prince Charming in the third Cinderella movie. I've grown to really like him, who was originally created to basically be Cinderella's arm candy. When you're talking about characters like, Nala in The Lion King, I do kind of like her, but she's pretty much a one, maybe two-dimensional personality character that they didn't really develop at all. She was basically there to be Simba's love interest and didn't serve any other purpose. I don't have anything against her, but I find her pretty boring and, otherwise useless. I don't have anything against her, but she's kind of a love interest gone wrong, done wrong. Also, Bo Peep from the Toy Story franchise. She was pretty much there just to be Woody's arm candy and his love interest. Again, I don't have anything against her. She's alright, but she's very much a one-dimensional, generic love interest. So to me, a character created primarily to be a love interest, it all depends on how well it's done. And I think that Madellaine was done very well. She definitely has a three-dimensional personality, and while her primary purpose was to be Quasi's love interest, it definitely wasn't her only purpose in the movie. She's ugly. I'm guessing you're pretty shallow, if that's the reason you dislike her. Much like boring and annoying, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And while my friend finds her to be gorgeous, I find her to be, pretty and kind of plain looking, but that's my personal opinion. But if you're going to, that may be partially because of the bad animation in the movie, but I don't know how the heck you find her ugly. I don't see that, but even if you find her to be butt ugly, is that really a legitimate reason to dislike a character? I don't see it. I mean, if you're going to dislike her because she's ugly, you might as well dislike Quasi also, because he's even less attractive than she is. Got you there, didn't I? I'm not gonna go too deep into this since it's a really stupid complaint, but disliking a character solely because of their looks is a very shallow, stupid reason. And there are characters that I find unattractive, like Quasimodo, that I love, and characters that I dislike that I find attractive. Like, well, I don't actually dislike them, I'm more neutral about them, but like, Rapunzel and Anna, I think that they're both very pretty. And even with characters that I absolutely hate, like, Sinbad from Sinbad Legend of the Seven Seas. I'm willing to admit that he's handsome, and characters that and also characters that I dislike, that I don't find attractive, like Flynn Rider and Dimitri. I'm not going to list the fact that I don't find them attractive as a reason that I dislike them. And that's all I have to say about that complaint, because it's really shallow and stupid. She went behind Quasimodo's back and was working for the villain. Well, like my friend said, she didn't have much of a choice in the matter. She was pretty much forced into it. And, she was pretty much forced into it. But she did... She did... like I said, it's been a long time since I've seen the movie, so I don't remember how the exact scene went. But she did try to explain everything to him, and she would have rather him think badly of her than him get hurt, which to me is pretty admirable. When she tries to persuade Sarouche not to hurt him, he basically tells her that if she doesn't do what he says, he's going to hurt Quasimodo, and so she goes along with Sarouche because she would rather Quasimodo think badly of her than him get hurt, which to me is pretty admirable. So she didn't really have any choice in the matter. She was pretty much forced into it. And another thing that I'd like to bring up is she wasn't the only Disney heroine who's ever been working for a villain. I mean, think about Meg working for Hades. And she definitely went behind Hercules' back. So, I don't really see how that makes Madellaine a worse character than, like, Meg is. If you know what I mean. I mean, if you look at like Meg, she was working for Hades, and she definitely went behind Hercules' back, in the hopes of getting her freedom. Then when she finds out what Hades is going to do, she tries to tell Hercules not to listen to him, but Hades catches her and prevents her from doing it. So, I don't really see that. I don't really see how Madellaine is any worse. Is any worse a character than Meg was, since both of them were working for the villain. Both of them fell in love with the hero while working for the villain, and then try to try to make up for it. So to me, that's just really nitpicky, and somebody looking for something to dislike her about. I can't really think of any others right off the top of my head, but I know that there were other Disney characters that worked for the villain. Moving on. She's stupid. How? She is... In my opinion, she's pretty clever. Since she saves the day and everything, and, stupid is one of those complaints that gets thrown around way too much. I mean, yeah, I get it with characters like Launchpad, and to an extent, Anastasia Tremaine, and characters like that that are not the sharpest knife in the drawer and that sort of stuff, even if they're not outright stupid. But, I don't get it with characters like, Ariel, Melody, Ariel and Melody and Jane and Kiara and Webby and, so forth. If anything, I'd say that Madellaine was, naive and a bit ignorant of the world around her since she had lived her entire life in the circus, basically. But, even that may be pushing it a little, since she did spend some years on the street. But in my opinion, I'd say that she is pretty clever, and, since she does save the day, and, by tightrope walking, and since she figures out Sarouche's plan, even though it is a pretty weak and stupid plan. So, I can see why some people might think that she's kind of young and ignorant, but stupid is very much stretching it. Moving on. She ruined the concept of the gargoyles being imaginary and in Quasimodo's head by being able to talk to them. Really? To me, it's pretty obvious that they weren't imaginary in the original. I mean... think about the last fight scene where they're, dropping bricks on people, where, Laverne is summoning the birds. Also that scene where, Hugo, the fat gargoyle, is, flirting with the goat, and, the goat sees him. So it was ruined way before that. I think that people just kind of hate the gargoyles, though I don't understand why. And, we're looking for a reason to, to hate Madellaine, and decided on that. So, I don't really see this as a legitimate complaint about her. Personally, I don't get what the big deal is about the gargoyles. I mean, to me, they were always funny characters. But to each their own. If they annoy you and you don't like them, that's your personal opinion. And like my friend said, we probably need to do a review about them. Anyway, I don't see this as a legitimate complaint about her, since the concept of them being imaginary was ruined way before she came along, way back in the first movie, where the goat was able to see them, Jolly, I believe is his name, and where they were actually in the final battle, beating people up. So, nice try, but pick a better reason than that to dislike her. Her development was done poorly. I will admit it wasn't the best development in the world. I would say it was average. Not the best, but not the worst. I mean, to me, when I think of bad development, I think of characters like Dimitri, who one minute they're a big jerk, then the next minute they're then Anastasia puts on a new dress and he falls in love with her. Then when he finds out that she's the real princess, he loves her for who she is. Huh? To me, that's bad character development. And even characters that have pretty bad character development, like Naveen from Princess and the Frog, I still like him despite the fact that he doesn't have good character development. I mean, I don't think that his is anywhere near as bad as Dimitri, but his is definitely a lot worse than Madeline's. I mean, at least you can kind of see her develop through the movie. Like, first she's startled by Quasimodo when she first sees him in the bell tower. Then when she sees him with Zephyr, she realizes what a kind person he is and that sort of thing. So it's not like, boom, out of nowhere. So, disliking a character strictly because their character development what wasn't the best is pretty nitpicky in my opinion. Because, like I said, I still like Naveen, even though his character development wasn't very good. And she should have left the circus a long time ago and quit working for Sarouche. She didn't really have much of a choice. Again, like I mentioned in my Snow White review, my Cinderella review, and my Jane review, you need to take the time period of the character into consideration. She was basically an orphan that was caught stealing from him, and back then, if you were caught stealing, a common thief was basically labeled for life and had no chance of getting a job. They were thrown in prison for decades, and once they were released, they were labeled for life and had no chance of getting a job. So, he kindly didn't turn her in, and, let her work for him, and, excuse me. Let her work for him rather than throwing her in prison. And so she's pretty much stuck there because otherwise she's a common thief, and nobody would hire her. And she'd be out on the streets having to steal again, or becoming a prostitute, or something like that. And, like I mentioned in my Snow White and Cinderella review, a woman's class was entirely based on her husband or father, and she was an orphan, so whether she came from an upper class or a lower class family, we don't know. But at this point, she's an orphan, and even if she came from an upper class family, she has no way of proving it at this point. So even if she did try to run away from the circus or something, she wouldn't have any place to go. So she was pretty much forced to stay there, and at least it's a stable job with a roof over her head. So, again, people need to really start taking the time period into consideration. She's passive. To an extent she is. She's not what I would call an aggressive character. But, She does. She's definitely not aggressive, and is more passive compared to most of the modern Disney heroes and heroines. Like when you compare her to she's definitely passive when you compare her to like Ariel, Jasmine, Merida, those kind of characters. But she does stand up for herself and for Quasimodo. I mean, when Farouche is talking about stealing the bell, she does say that she doesn't want to be a part of it anymore. And that sort of thing. So, she is to an extent passive. Not, I wouldn't say that she is compared to the classic Disney princesses like Snow White, Cinderella and Aurora. And I mean, even if a character is somewhat passive, I don't really see that as being a bad thing. I mean, does every character... does every character have to be aggressive and can't think of the right word, but Does every character have to be extremely vocal to be a good character? I don't think so. She should have been ugly to match Quasimodo. Really? Okay, I do have to mention something about this complaint. I heard this complaint one time from a person on FanPop who shall remain nameless, that, that was very nitpicky about a lot of things, and, was a very active feminist, and was, desperate for Disney to have an ugly heroine, and, said that for some reason, the fact that Madellaine was beautiful, it, somehow ruined the, finding the inner beauty message that Hunchback was trying to get through. I never understood that. Okay, okay, so are you trying to say that, an attractive woman can't be with an unattractive guy, or an attractive guy can't be with an unattractive woman, like in Kronk's New Groove, that every couple has to match each other, because I don't get that, and I also don't get how it ruins the, find the inner beauty message. So, pick something other than looks, whether the character is too beautiful for your taste, or too ugly for your taste. Pick something other than frickin' looks as a reason to dislike a character. And moving on. She's a sequel character. I'm not going to go too deep into this, because I've been over it many, many, many times. While I will admit there are some bad sequel characters, like Sarouche, most of the characters from The Fox and the Hound, too, like a bunch of them, not every sequel character is bad, and it's not a good reason to dislike every single character that's in a sequel. I will admit there are some bad sequels and some bad sequel characters, but not every character from a frickin' sequel is bad. So, nice try, but pick a better reason. And I'm getting close to the 50-minute mark, so I better wrap it up. Anyway, I do like Madellaine a lot. I think that she's a very good character. The link to my Friends 2 videos and my first video will be in the comments section below. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Bye, see you next time.